I asked my nephew there as well to join. Jack Goulding, did he get in?
He was in for a little while and then he's left again.
Okay.
I don't know if he was having difficulty with the audio, but he was admitted and then it looks like he's left again.
Oh yeah, because he's after getting a Rossi pup as well.
Ah, very good.
Oh, look at this, look.
Okay. So thank you, those of you who've managed to join. As I say, we're going to have a few more people coming in as time goes on, because unfortunately some people were hoping to join after they finished work. So we will just crack on and see how far we get. And if you've got any questions or any stories that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you at the end, if that's okay. So we're going to have a chat this evening about what we can do to help prepare puppies for their first year in the big bad world. And it's particularly important right now because we're seeing puppies really inhibited in their early socialisation because of the COVID-19 restrictions. So we're going to see a lot more separation anxiety and a lot more general anxiety is going to new places, meeting new people, because we're going to be so limited in what we can expose them to over the next wee while. So it's really important that we are a little bit creative and use our imaginations to find ways of helping to desensitize puppies to all the potentially scary things they could come across in their day-to-day lives. So what's really important when we're thinking about how puppies learn is what we know about learning theory. And this very much applies whether we're talking about people or types of animals. We use learning theory when we're working with animals in zoos. We use learning theory when we teach assistance animals, whether it's guide dogs or dogs for the disabled. Animals have got an amazing ability to learn and adapt, and generally they are keen to please people. It's really important. It's something that dogs are a little bit unique in the way that they've evolved, because they desperately want the people in their lives to be happy with them. So we've got all of that in our favour. And then we've got little brains that are like little sponges between 3 and 12 weeks of age. Now, a lot of the research that was done in this field was done in the 60s, and it was only using beagles. So it was very, very breed specific. And we do not have a whole range of information on all of the different breeds of dogs. And you'll know yourselves that we sort of talk about the different intelligence levels of the different breeds. So Border Collies, for example, would be incredibly clever in terms of working with sheep. We'll have dogs who are particularly good at working with the services. So police dogs like could be dogs that are trained to look for scent in search and rescue or in dog detection. So we use the way that animals learn in a working role, but also as our pets, to make sure that they understand the rules of our household. And what's really important when we are getting puppies used to the environment, both inside your own home and then what they're going to encounter outside, is a term called desensitization. And that basically just means getting used to something new, okay, in a way that's not overwhelming and that's not scary. And when we introduce counter conditioning, what we're actually doing is turning a situation that's potentially scary into something that the animal or the person associates with reward. So that might be when we were at school and we got an inoculation and you had the jab, and then somebody gave you a lollipop or a sweetie to sort of distract you from the pain and to turn what is an unpleasant experience into something positive. So we can use that with dogs. And what's really important about individual dogs is finding out what turns them on. They're all unique, they're all individual. Some of them will like food and will work for food. Others really value contact with people and they just want praise or cuddles and attention. Other types of dog, particularly border collie types, might like a squeaky toy or a ball, and that's their reward. So it's really important that when we're training animals in this day and age, that we're using reward-based training, and that we're making sure that animals aren't doing what we want them to do because they're scared of us. They're doing it because they want to please us and because they know they're going to get something nice for the reward at the end of the day. They're not doing it because they're scared of what's going to happen to them if we don't do it. Okay, and that's the big change over the last few years, because punishment-based training, was incredibly popular. It does work, of course it does, because if an animal's terrified to do something because they're worried they're going to be punished or something painful is going to happen to them afterwards, of course they're going to do it. But the big hindrance with it is that your timing has got to be spot on, and it's also going to teach the animal to be scared of you. So it's about training the animal to do what we want them to do, but doing it in a way that's positive and that's not going to cause us undue stress at the same time. So one of the first things we want to do with a new puppy is get them used to handling. And hopefully, if any of you have got your dog from a breeder, or if you've bred them yourselves and you are responsible for their early experience yourself, you'll be able to work on this on a daily basis. And animals have got a fairly short attention span, so we want to be making sure we're only doing very, very short spells of training, but doing it regularly, repeating it, and making sure that everybody in the household is doing the same thing, and handling the animal kindly, using the same gestures or verbal cues to make sure that it's consistent and that the animal understands what you need to do. Now, as a vet, I'm very aware that when I am asked to clip nails or empty anal glands or give an injection, do something that's potentially uncomfortable or painful for an animal, it can be really scary for them. And if they're not used to being touched in certain places, it just makes my life an awful lot harder. So with new puppies, it's important that they get used to being touched all over their body. So their ears, having their mouths open, having their feet and getting used to the noise if they're going to have their nails clipped. Sometimes it's that clicking noise that upsets them rather than the actual feeling of the nail being clipped. So get them used to different people handling them, and you should be able to touch them anywhere in their body without them being scared or reacting in a negative way. And if they do get upset about you holding them gently for a period of, it could be 30 seconds to a minute, then it's something you're going to need to build up gradually. So maybe do it for 5 seconds and then release them. And then the next time you try and do it for a little bit longer. And it's really important that they can be held gently for a period of time. They might need to be restrained for something. They might need to have something taken from their mouths if it's potentially scary or harmful. So it's really important that they can tolerate that. And going to the vets is going to be really important as well. We want to make sure that the first experience a puppy has in the veterinary clinic is not something that's going to be scary or painful. So it's a nice idea to take them into the clinic and maybe just get them weighed, maybe just get the staff on reception, or if there's nurses or vets that are sort of in and out of the waiting area, to get them to come and say hello, give the dog lots and lots of attention and praise, maybe give them a treat, and have absolutely nothing bad happen to them. Okay, it just means that the next time they come in and something painful does happen, they've already got that baseline of positive experience. So they're kind of, if you imagine, if you only go somewhere, let's say you go to the dentist, and whenever you go to the dentist, it's only when you've got toothache or you need, some major work done that's painful. It just means that whenever you think about going into the dentist, you're going to be a bit apprehensive about it. Is it going to be painful? How painful is it going to be? Am I going to be sore for ages afterwards? You've got all these things going on in your head. So, whereas if you go to the dentist and have checkups regularly and they don't do anything other than tell you your mouth's great, it just means that you've got all that positive experience, or at least neutral experience, to override the very rare occasions when something painful or scary is going to happen to you. Now, there'll be lots of resources available at the vets. Now, generally, if they are giving you advice about boarding kennels or about a dog trainer or about a veterinary behaviourist, if they're giving you the details, generally people see that as an endorsement. Okay, and as a vet, I wouldn't recommend a boarding kennel if I hadn't been there, if I hadn't seen the place, if I didn't know the owner and know that your animal was going to be looked after there. So they are really a good source of information, and you know, they should be working hard to make sure that they are the first source of information for you, rather than going to the internet where you can be bombarded with a whole load of rubbish as well. So the counter conditioning side of going into the vet. So if something negative does have to happen, if they have to have an injection or if they have to have their nails clipped and something scary done, then that should always be followed by something positive to try and counteract the negative. And I put on here new needle. It's really important that we change needles. So whenever you're going into the vets, if you watch them, watch what they're doing. Vaccines should be out of the fridge. They should be at room temperature so that they're not really cold going in. And the vaccine should be drawn up with one needle and syringe and then a fresh needle put on. Okay, it just means that the needle's not been blunt by being put through the vaccine diaphragm on the bottle. Okay, it means it's fresh, it's clean, and it's going to be a lot less painful because there'll be less drag on the needle. And it just means that that first vaccine and hopefully the second are going to be as pain-free as possible. Puppy's going to get loads of fuss and attention before, during and after, and it just means they're not going to be scared the next time they do come in and they're unwell and potentially either in pain or feeling lousy because they've got a medical problem going on. The toilet training, this is probably the most frequent question when people have got puppies that they're having difficulty, and I think there's a whole load of conflicting advice out there as well. I know when I was little and had my first puppy, my parents were big into rolling up a newspaper and hitting the puppy in the nose if it weed in the wrong place. And we've kind of moved away from that sort of ideology now. We're very much giving the puppy opportunities to go and urinate and defecate in the right place, and then giving them lots of praise when they do that. And they're going to do it naturally whenever they've eaten, whenever they've been asleep and woken up, if they're playing and carrying on, if somebody new comes to the house or one of the family members comes home and they're excited, all those things are going to stimulate the bladder. And in terms of defecating, if they've had a meal, that tends to stimulate in the gut, tends to stimulate them to want to go to the toilet as well. So whenever you're doing those things, take them outside, give them the opportunity to go to the toilet, and then give them lots and lots of praise when they do it in the right place. It's really important that we use consistency. So if there's a particular area in the garden that you want them to go to, or if you want to train them to go in a sandpit area or a particular place in the garden, make sure everybody in the household is directing them to that place first. And if they go there, brilliant, give them lots and lots of praise. If they do it in the wrong place, it's not the end of the world. Let them finish going to the toilet and then take them to where you do want them to be going, and then give them lots and lots of praise in that particular area. So the rewards might be verbal. You might just be telling them what a good boy or girl they are, and lots of gushing praise. And it might be that you give them a food reward. It might be that you are into clicker training and you want to teach them that a click on a little plastic clicker is their reward, and they learn that means they've done something good. Now, for me, there's lots of things you can train dogs to do. You can pretty much train a dog to do anything that it's capable of doing with 4 feet in its mouth. Okay, and people train dogs to do all sorts of fancy things. They'll even dance for you now. But for me, the important things that we want to be working on with training, generally a sit is nice and easy. Puppies almost do it naturally. When they're looking up at you, they tend to lower their back legs and get into a sit position. And it's a good default. If they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, like jumping up on somebody coming to the house or digging at the carpet or whatever it is that you don't want them to be doing, if you ask them to sit calmly, it tends to mean that they can't do those negative behaviours. So it's a good sort of basic command to be working on initially. And then for me, come just gets them out of trouble. So if they're getting too close to the road, or if you see a car coming, or if there's you know, a huge dog with a muzzle on coming towards you and they're running around off lead and you just want to get them back to you to safety, come's a really good command to be teaching. So generally I wouldn't recommend just using their name, because you probably use their name in lots of different situations, so it's not specific enough. So you probably want to use a come or use some sort of hand gesture. So generally people tend to crouch down at puppy level and maybe put their arms out wide, and sort of do lots of gesturing, lots of noise until the puppy naturally wants to come towards you, and then you give it lots and lots of praise. The other one that I think is particularly important is leave, because unfortunately I've seen and had to remove too many foreign bodies that dogs have eaten, whether it's babies' dummies, parts of toys, Brillo pads, corn on the cob, all sorts of exciting things that dogs have managed to consume. So if you see your dog about to try and put something in its mouth that's not supposed to, we need to be able to make sure that they're going to leave that. And the way to train that is to give them an alternative that they are allowed to have. So we're basically teaching them a swap. So I want you to put that one down, and I'm going to give you something much better, either something tastier or a toy that's higher reward, but something that the dog is going to want to have rather than whatever it is that you want to give off them. And that's a really good one to practice. And when we're doing the training classes face to face, those are the sort of three main commands that I'd like to work on. And some other ones that you might find helpful are a wait or a stay. It's quite good to teach them frustration and a little bit of patience to work on wait or stay. So we're asking them to get into either a sit or a down position and then wait while you step back, and then you're going to invite them to come to you at the end of a period of time. So initially it might be 2 seconds, and then gradually you're going to build it up to 10 seconds, 15 seconds, however long your dog is clever enough and patient enough to wait for, and then we're going to give them lots of praise when they do come to you. Anything else you manage to teach your dog? So people like to teach them bang and they fall over, or they do lots of burleys, or they go in and out weave pulls. There's loads of things you can teach dogs to do. Fetch the post for you, load the washing machine, you name it, they can pretty much be taught to do it. But for me, the important ones are on here, and they're certainly the basics to be working on. And anything else you manage to teach them is a bonus. The noisy. Fear and anxiety is probably the biggest behavioural problem that I see now, and I think that's partially because dogs are becoming more and more like part of the family. They're treated a little bit more like human babies, and they're a little bit mollycoddled, and people generally, unfortunately, reinforce the wrong behaviours when their puppy shows fear. So if the puppy hears a noise, or if they come across a bigger dog and they act as if they act fearfully naturally, the last thing you want to be doing is picking them up, cuddling them, gushing and wooing and telling them that everything's going to be okay, because you're actually teaching that puppy that whatever it is they've come across is scary, and that they have got reason to be scared. And that's absolutely not what we want. We want you to be nice and calm and relaxed and just not react at all, really. Okay, so if it's a fire engine or a motorbike or somebody slamming a car door or whatever it may be, that the puppy might startle and act fearfully, you just want to say, that's nothing at all, we'll not worry about that, let's just carry on. Okay, and be as calm as you can. If you pick them up and gush all over them, you're going to actually reward the fearful behaviour. And what you find is that the puppies will start extrapolating. So if they're scared of a cupboard door banging at home, they'll then start reacting to bangs outside. And you'll end up with not just one thing they're scared of, but loads. And you end up with dogs that either won't go outside the house, or when you go outside the front door, they'll only turn in one direction because they're terrified of everything. if you go the other way, and you can't take them anywhere because they're too scared. And again, people that don't take their dogs out, that just let them run around the back garden and they don't actually go anywhere, that the day that they do have to go somewhere, they're going to be petrified. So we need to make sure we're exposing them to all these different scary things, but in a really controlled way where we're nice and calm and relaxed, and that we teach them there's nothing to be worried about. And if it is something scary, if it's getting too close to a bonfire or something that could potentially be damaging to them, then fair enough, you want to teach them to back away from that. But for everything else out there that is not a genuine threat, we just need to be calm and relaxed about it. And then people. So I had my dogs in the park the other day, and I was walking with a family member, and we came across a lady with a trench coat and an umbrella, and the dog we were walking with was terrified and started barking at the lady. And it was just, she obviously hasn't seen people with umbrellas anytime recently, and something like that, if you're not exposed to it regularly, could be really scary. What is this thing in this person's hand that I haven't come across before? So people with beards, older people with Zimmer frames or walking sticks could be really scary if they're not used to it. High-vis jackets on workmen. It could be Gardaí or people with a uniform or hat on. Kids can be really scary if dogs have not been exposed to them when they're little. So we need to get them used to a range of different people. If the household's predominantly women, then we need to make sure that we've got friends or relatives who are male coming to visit, and making sure the puppy's exposed to everybody basically, so that they learn that people are nothing to be scared of. And because unfortunately, in an adult dog, if they're fearful, they might cower away. They might be really, really quiet and just freeze and want to be away from the situation. Equally, an adult dog who is scared could start growling or lifting their lip or barking at the person, and that could be misinterpreted as aggression. And that's when your dog's going to get into trouble with everybody else out there. And it's actually motivated by fear. It's not aggression at all. It's just that they feel insecure and they're reacting in the wrong way because they don't really know what the right way is. Other dogs. So again, particularly if they've come from a breeder and they tend to breed one particular type, then it may well be that they're great with other dogs, but only of that particular breed. So we need to make sure they're exposed to a range of different types of dogs, males and females, those that are neutered, those that are entire, small, medium and large, all sorts of different dogs of different ages as well. Okay, and I know it's really hard, particularly when you've got a little puppy and you want to protect them, but it's really important that we let them interact with the adult dogs. Adult dogs are, they're incredibly patient with puppies. They know that it's a puppy. They know that the puppy's probably going to be loud and boisterous and annoying, just like kids are to people. You get used to it, you allow for it, and you let them go so far, and then when they start getting to the point where they're either really irritating or going to get themselves into trouble, then the adult dog needs to be able to tell them that. And they're fantastic at communicating. There'll be lots of growling and barking and posturing, but they will not hurt the puppy. And sometimes things go a bit wrong and the puppy either startles and runs or gets knocked over or something happens. But it's not, the motivation is not aggression. The adult dog is not trying to hurt the puppy. They're trying to tell the puppy that they're being a pest and that they're trying to teach them the ropes, basically. And we need to have the confidence in the adult dog to know that they're going to do that in a safe way. They're going to do it, they've got the best of intentions, and that they are just trying to mold that puppy into a well-behaved dog that will fit in with the household. So there'll be a lot of noise and a lot of gesturing, but unless blood is drawn, it is safe to let them do that. And I know it can be scary, and it's a huge source of conflict within households when somebody wants to protect the puppy and somebody else is sticking up for the adult dog. But as far as it's possible, unless they really give you reason to think that they are, they intend to hurt, do let them try and get on with it and resolve things themselves. Because if you intervene, we can actually make things a lot worse. Other animals. So depending on where you live, puppies that are living in the city, it's going to be harder for them just now to get out and actually meet some cattle and sheep and horses. But it's really important that they learn to be quiet and under control around farm animals. Again, dogs will get themselves into a lot of bother if they behave inappropriately around stock, and we definitely don't want the stock to be frightened. We're at risk of causing sheep to abort if they're pregnant, and it's not right for our dogs to be barking or chasing farm animals. It's going to upset the farmer. It's definitely going to upset those farm animals, and it's not right. The dog shouldn't be allowed to behave like that. So they need to be under control. They need to be on a lead, and they need to be quiet and calm around these animals. So you have to teach them that when they're little. They won't just automatically know. So we need to take them, expose them to these situations, and give them lots of praise when they are quiet and calm. And smells. Now you'll know yourselves, I have lots of memories of particular situations in my life or particular people. My grandfather smoked a pipe, so whenever I smell pipe smoke, I've got a really strong positive memory of my grandfather. So dogs are exactly the same. Their sense of smell is about 10,000 times the strength of ours. So smells will be really important to them, and smells will obviously be positive, but they can also be negative as well. So if they get to go into one of the big pet stores and it smells like food and there's lots of toys and colour and lots of things going on, they're hopefully going to have positive associations with that. Going to the groomers or going to boarding kennels might go either way for them. It might be a positive for them, getting to see the other dogs and getting a bit of pampering and attention, but for others it might be really scary and they're upset because they're away from their family. So these situations, the associated smells will be really powerful. So it's important to remember when we're desensitizing that if we're taking them to a situation that even if you think, oh, they've been to something similar to this before and they were fine, there could be something different about it this time, a different smell. There could have been some sort of chemical cleaner, or it could be a dog that's unwell that they're smelling. It could be a particular person that they associate with something negative, and they're smelling something that makes complete no sense to you at all. But from the dog's perspective, they have got a negative association with it. So it's just something to be mindful of. And it's something we're aware of in veterinary practices now, not to be using really powerful, stinky disinfectants and air fresheners, because they're actually really quite pungent and noxious to dogs. So we want to be using unfragranced cleaners as much as possible. So it's just something to be aware of. So even if you think, well, they've been to this place a million times and they were absolutely fine, today there's something different and you don't understand it, but from their perspective it makes complete sense, because scent really is their most powerful sense, and it's really important to them. Transport. So hopefully your dog learns that when they're going in the car, it means they're going somewhere nice, and it's not only associated with going to the vet or going to the groomer or going to the boarding kennels. Hopefully they're going to the beach, or they're going to the woods, or they're going to their friends to run around and have fun. So they've got positive associations. We need to make sure they're under control and they're safe in the car. So the most stable part of the car is the back seat and the footwell. If you are going to put them in the back seat or in the boot, we just need to make sure that they're safe, that they're not going to get jostled about when the car's moving, and that if there is an impact from the side or the rear, that your dog is going to be safe and that you're going to be able to get them out of the car safely. Okay, so these a lot of people use these boot cages. We need to be able to access that from both sides, from the outside and from the inside of the car. If there was a rear impact and the car was crumpled, we need to be able to get the dog out safely. So we need to be able to put the back seats down and get them out that way. If you are using a harness for your dog, there's some fabulous seatbelt adapters you can use to make sure your dog's secure in the car. What I don't want to see is dogs with a head hanging out the window. Unfortunately, I've had dogs with broken backs too many times that have seen something when they've stopped at a traffic light and tried to jump out the car and been injured as a result of it. So if they're in the car, whichever area of the car suits you, make sure they're secure and that they can't fall out and injure themselves. If your dog or your puppy is showing signs of motion sickness, it's quite normal when they're little. They may only have been in the car to go from the breeder to your home. So if they look like they're salivating, if they're sick, anything like that, it's worth speaking to your vet, because there are things that we can do to get rid of the travel sickness and to help reduce their stress levels a little bit so that they don't feel sick. But hopefully they'll soon learn that car means adventures and nice walks, and they're going to be so excited that's going to counteract any motion sickness. Now, being alone, this is again really important, particularly during COVID. I have loads of people who say to me, I'm getting a new puppy, so I'm taking 2 weeks off work. And it's like, well, why? Why? The last thing you want to do is spend 24/7 with a puppy for 2 weeks and then go back to work. And then the puppy thinks, well, hang on a minute, where'd you go? They're used to being with you all the time. We need to teach them independence. It's really, really important. They have to be able to entertain themselves using toys, using scents, using chews, using things to keep themselves entertained. So even if it's just 10 minutes initially, you need to get them used to being left for short periods of time. Now, the reason I put this particular picture in, you'll notice we've got a pen for puppy. They've got food and water in there. They've got a nice lying area with there's a nice Kong toy in the middle there, and then you'll see there's a cat litter tray, and it's a huge big cat litter tray, and it's got grass in it. And the reason I put that in is because we don't want to be using newspaper or puppy pads. They're really confusing. That is not what we want the puppy to be going on. The next time you leave your newspaper or magazine on the floor, the puppy's going to go over and pee on it. We want them to be going in grass, or if you're going to be using a yard for them and you want to train them to go on concrete, then you need to be putting some sort of concrete tile down for them within their puppy pen, so that we're training them to go on the substrate that you want them to use outside. So cat litter tray with some turf or a bit of grass in, a bit of soil, so it's got the right smell and it's the right substrate that you want to teach them to use. Now, puppies do not have bladder control till they're 5 months old. So they are going to have accidents. They're not going to be able to go all night without going to the toilet. But if you've got them in a confined area, so they're not going to damage your house, they're not going to be peeing all over your rugs and ruining the lino in the kitchen. Give them a confined area with a lying area, food and water, some nice toys, and then an area for them to go to the toilet on that you don't mind, that's easy for you to clean, and that we're still doing their toilet training. We're teaching them what substrate we do want them to go on, and it's much less confusing for them. Now, an area like this is fine overnight. If you just want to use a crate, that's okay, but that's a short-term solution. That's not something that we want dogs to be kept in for any period of time. A couple of hours would probably be about the maximum. If they're going to be left for any longer than that, they do need space to move around, to be able to urinate and defecate away from their lying area. And unless you've got a tiny puppy in a huge crate, it's really hard to do that with a training crate. So you might need to look at a slightly bigger area. And there are fantastic puppy pens or pens that are actually designed for kids that you can adapt for puppies. Pleasant experiences. So this all comes down to our animal welfare legislation. So we, as pet owners, we're responsible to ensure the welfare of our dogs on a daily basis. So that means checking them over to make sure that they're fit and healthy. It means making sure that they've got everything that they need. They've got a safe environment. They've got a comfortable, dry lying area. They are free from illness and disease. They have opportunities for positive and natural behaviour, and opportunities to interact with other animals of the same species. And we also want to make sure that we're giving them the opportunities for pleasure, and then protecting them from unpleasant experiences. Okay, so there's a lot more to animal welfare than just making sure they're fed and watered and clean and dry. We need to be actually thinking about their mental well-being as well. So basically, in order to provide this for your dog, you just need to think dog, think and think about your individual dog, what makes them happy. Different breeds will be motivated by different things. Your individual dog will be happy and enjoy doing particular things. It might be chasing a ball, it might be chewing a bone, it might be chasing other dogs around the park. Whatever it is that your dog enjoys doing, try and make sure that they're doing that ideally on a daily basis, but at least several times a week. And what we don't want is that they do nothing 5 days a week and then get a 5-mile hike at the weekend. We need to be making sure that their physical and mental needs are being met on a daily basis, not just kind of when it suits us. So think about what they enjoy and then think about how you can provide that for them on a regular basis. And then protection from the negative. Now, the veterinary clinic's one of those ones where there's conflict here, because we need them to be going to the vet for preventative health, and certainly if they're ill, to make them better. But for most animals, going to the vet is actually really scary and quite often be associated with negative things, so either pain or being exposed to other animals that they're scared of. If it's a cat, being in an environment with dogs that smells of dog, it can actually be quite an unpleasant experience. So some of these unpleasant things we're going to have to do, but we just need to think about how we can sort of counteract the unpleasant sides of it. So thinking about the journey there, thinking about reducing stress when they get there, thinking about rewarding them for good behaviour, and it might be that they get a new toy or they get lots and lots of food rewards if they can tolerate whatever it is that's unpleasant. So microchipping a puppy is a classic. So for me, if I'm giving a vaccine, it's a nice small needle. It's over in a split second, and I can use biscuits or food rewards for that. If I'm putting in a microchip, it's probably 5 or 6 times the size, a huge big needle. So it's a lot more painful, and I want to use something higher reward. So I might have some ham or liver paste or peanut butter, or something really, really yummy to distract them. So some things are horrible and scary, but we have to do them for the animal's own good, basically. But there's lots of things that we can do to try and counteract the negative sides of it and help them get over it. I put boredom in here. That's probably one of the biggest problems that we have, because unfortunately we have to earn a living, we have to do other things, we have kids to look after, we have meals to cook, we have housework to do, we've got a million other things that we need to be doing. So dogs, it's really important that we can teach them to entertain themselves, and if you've got a multi-dog household, fabulous, hopefully they'll help to entertain each other. But in the absence of that, we need to be using scent and toys and chews and lots of positive things to keep them entertained. So because boredom is really damaging. An animal that's got nothing to do and nothing around it to entertain itself with is at higher risk of stress. And that stress might result in skin conditions, it might result in diarrhea or stomach upset, it might result in inappropriate chewing. So I'll see a lot of dogs where they are either licking their paws or looking at their tails or even looking at their flanks because they've got nothing else to do, and it's a sign of stress. Just in the same way as people that cut themselves or pull their hair out will do that to try and make themselves feel better because they're experiencing stress. So in the absence of anything else to entertain themselves with, they can resort to self-trauma and actually really hurt themselves as a result of it. So we need to make sure we've got lots and lots of things to keep them entertained on their own, not necessarily always with us directly. The time is the biggest downside of dog ownership. And as I've just said, if we're not providing everything that the dog needs, we will see behavioural problems as a result of it. It might be self-trauma, it might be other problems. If they're not getting enough exercise, we might see hyperactivity, we might see obesity. If they're not socialising enough with other dogs or people, then we might start to see either fear or aggression as a result of that when we do actually get to meet strangers or unfamiliar dogs. So the amount of time that you put into your dog basically will determine how happy that dog's life is going to be and how well behaved they're going to be. And when they're puppies, they're fairly labour intensive. They do need you to put in the time investment to get things right, and then hopefully they'll turn into robust, well-behaved adult dogs, and all that time and effort will pay off for you. The children are, in terms of research, dogs who live in households with children are at higher risk of relinquishment, i.e. being surrendered to a rescue shelter. They're at higher risk of being euthanized, and they're at higher risk of a whole range of behaviour, or basically the whole range of behaviour problems: hyperactivity, difficulty toilet training, aggression to people, aggression to other dogs. So children are a little bit of a nightmare for dogs, but on the offside, dogs are fantastic for kids. There's a whole load of evidence that growing up with a dog is fabulous for children. It develops their immune system. It teaches them responsibility and respect for animals. They're trusted. Children can confide in dogs. They spend time with them. They're fabulous for kids. So we just need to make sure that the relationship is balanced, and that the dogs are kept safe, and that the children aren't cruel to them. And one of the resources that I always recommend to people with children is the Blue Dog. Now, this is completely free now. When it was first developed, you had to buy the CD-ROM, but now everything is available online. And it is a blue dog because no child will ever come across a blue dog in the real world. So the blue dog basically will growl, they will behave aggressively, and they will try to bite if the child does the wrong thing. So basically we're teaching children what is acceptable and what is not acceptable around dogs to keep them safe, and we're not going to traumatise them because they're never going to meet a blue dog, basically. So there's lots of things that we can do to try and make sure that the dogs don't develop jealousy. I have a lot of clients who are young couples, and they get a dog when they get together, then they buy the house, and then they have the kids, and the dog has been the child. And when the real children come along, the dog's nose is out of joint, and we can start seeing behavioural problems as a result of that. So we want to make sure the dogs get lots of praise and attention and treats and nice things when the children are around. But it's also important that the dogs have got a den or a safe place to be able to get away from the kids too. So if they're too noisy, or if they've got their friends around and there's just too many kids in the house, and the dog just wants to go somewhere quiet to get away from it all, they need to be able to go there, and the children are banned. They are not allowed anywhere near the dog's den. That is absolutely against the rules, and the dog is not expected to come out unless they're asked. No child is to try and get into a den with the dog. Now, sometimes a den is a crate with a blanket over it. Sometimes it's behind the couch or in the understairs cupboard. I remember one dog who didn't have a den and who just used to go and stick their head under the coats on the coat rail. So they kind of hid their head in that. That was their little safe place to get away from the noise and the kids. So in the absence of a real den, the dogs will adapt and improvise, make up their own safe place. So if you can make that available to them, it's much better. And it just means we're going to hopefully avoid issues rather than having any incidents where dogs are potentially biting children, irrespective of what's caused it, because more often than not, it's the child that's done something to initiate or upset the dog, and the dog's just retaliated. So there's lots of help and advice out there. There are some guides that you can download off the internet, and if anyone's interested, I can send you some. And basically, it's got a list of the kind of things that you want to expose your puppy to, and you need to do it in a controlled way. The last thing you want to do is sort of become obsessed with, we're going to expose you to everything on this list over the next weekend, and the puppy is exhausted and overwhelmed, and it's actually going to be counterproductive. So you want to sort of stage it, pick a handful of things that are convenient for you to expose them to, make sure that you're nice and quiet and calm, that if they react adversely, that you either take a step back or just take them out of the situation and try it again on another day. They might just be a little bit more confident or less tired, less hungry, less whatever, and tolerate it better the next time. And then puppy socialization classes are really important. It's a unique time because they're around other juvenile dogs of different shapes and sizes, and they're all in the same boat. They're all learning, they're all testing boundaries and bouncing around together. And hopefully the person running the class knows what they're doing to keep them right, because you'll have shy puppies, you'll have bold puppies, and we need to make sure that everybody's needs are being met. So they're a fantastic opportunity to teach your puppy what the rules are when they're interacting with other dogs. And then there's lots of things out there that you can get to help. So there's a product called Zilkine, which is basically a milk protein. And the best way to explain this is like you or I having a hot milky drink before we go to bed, some hot chocolate or whatever. And basically a high protein milk meal or supplement like that. Basically, we're diverting all the blood to your gut, and it makes you feel nice and satiated and relaxed. Zilkine, when it's broken down, it contains casein, which is broken down into L-tryptophan, which is a little bit further down the list, which is a precursor to serotonin, which helps to balance our mood. So we can feed the Zilkine, which is a supplement that you can buy over the counter or on the internet, and it's just basically casein, a milk protein. We have dog appeasing pheromone, which is a synthetic form of a natural pheromone, which basically tells the puppy that the environment is safe and calm. It comes in a spray, it comes in a diffuser, which will fill your room, and it comes in a collar, so you can actually put it on your dog and they can take it with them wherever they're going. And there are diets which have got additional casein and L-tryptophan in. Hills do a BD, which is a brain diet, which helps to reduce stress levels. Royal Canin do a diet called CALM, which basically does the same thing. And then there's various different supplements containing L-tryptophan that you can buy online. All of these things are available over the counter. You don't need to see your vet for them, but most vets will stock them if you're stuck. Now, all these things are adjuncts. They're not going to make a difference on their own. You do have to use them in combination with all the behavioural advice that we've been talking about. But they can help, particularly if you've got a slightly anxious puppy. Now, you can probably gather I could talk about this till the cows come home all day. But if any of you have got any specific questions, I'd love to hear from you. And this is just this is a picture of one of our puppies who is now no longer with us, who learned everything he knew from our adult German Shepherd there. And this is on the Isle of Mull, so it's a little bit of Scotland to show you on a wet October night in Limerick. But yeah, have any of you got any questions for me?
Thanks, Claire. That was brilliant, actually. There was loads of information. I suppose one question there is, I've noticed Halloween coming up, there's a lot more fireworks going on and stuff like that. Yeah. With the same situation and the dogs inside. Is there anything there that you think can help, or is that like that's not the norm? So how
I must admit, so last year was my first Halloween and bonfire night in Ireland. Now, in the UK, bonfire night is our big one with fireworks, and then New Year's Eve. So it's a huge problem, and there's a lot of dogs who are, they actually have a horrendous, and either night or it can go on for several nights, even weeks sometimes. So basically, for dogs, basically we would grade the anxiety level. If they get a bit barky and a bit pacey, what I normally say is make sure that you walk them during the day so that they're nice and calm and relaxed come the evening, and that they only need to go outside to go to the toilet. Okay, shut the curtains, put on a nice movie that's nice and loud, and have a nice bottle of wine yourselves, and be as calm and relaxed as you can be. Okay. If needs be, and the dog needs to go and hide somewhere, you can set them up a den. Sometimes the bathroom or a room in the middle of the house that hasn't got any windows tends to be the quietest place for them, and they're less likely to see any lights there. So a crate or a table that's covered over that they can go into and hide, just for an animal to feel as if it's got some control and it can get away from the situation, sometimes that's enough to relax them. A bit like the cat hiding on top of the wardrobe or under the bed. And if you feel as if they have taken action to get away, sometimes that's enough for them to reduce the stress levels. If the dog is literally salivating and will not go outside to go to the toilet. Some of them will actually urinate and defecate. They're so stressed. Okay, those animals need sedation. Okay, that is not something you're going to be able to manage just with you know, a den and you being nice and chilled out. Okay, these animals, but for them, it can actually result in dogs trying to escape and running across the road and getting hit by a car. For some of them, they can actually have fits because they're so stressed. So if they're at that level, you need to see your vet and you need to get anti-anxiety medication. We've now got 2 licensed products. So one of them is called Soleo, which is an oral mucosal product. So it comes as a tube, and basically it's got a graduated syringe, and you put the drug on the inside of the dog's gum, and it contains dexmedetomidine, which is a sedative. We use it as a pre-med before surgery. So we're actually sedating these animals to help reduce their stress levels. The other product we have is Pexion, which is an anti-anxiety medication that's also used for epilepsy. And they're both licensed for sound sensitivity and stress. Okay, as a kind of in between, if they're not, you know, they're not quite chilled out enough to hide in a den, but they're not, you know, wetting themselves and so stressed that they won't go outside that they need sedation. The dogs that are kind of in between, then we would use something like the Zilkine or the Adaptil collar. And basically what I would normally do with people is, you know, well away from the fireworks season, so March, April time, we'll work on desensitizing, and you can get MP3s that you can download for free, and they have got firework sounds, and we basically desensitize them to the sound of the fireworks, and then counter condition by rewarding them. So bringing out their favourite toy or their favourite shoes or their favourite food while they can hear the firework sounds going off. But you need to do it in a controlled way, which is well away from the fireworks season. Okay, so that you control it.
No, that's brilliant. You know, I was just kind of wondering because they've started already inside in Limerick, so you can hear.
But it's a much bigger problem in the UK than it is here, and I really hope it doesn't. You know, fireworks don't become more popular here, because it's a real problem. And the thing is that people worry about the dogs. Your poor cat hiding under the bed, or you know, what about the stock that are out in the field that can hear these fireworks going off? They're getting upset as well, and nobody's worrying about them. It's all animals are frightened by fireworks.
Yeah, no.
It's a big welfare issue. Yeah.
Claire, we fostered a 6-week-old lurcher for a few weeks in the summer, and we were surprised how persistent she sort of went into this fits of biting or mouthing. We were not prepared for that, I must say. It was very painful sometimes as well, from us. I mean, she was really sweet and everything, but when she turned into this kind of monster raptor kind of, she had a, you couldn't control her. She didn't respond to, you know, we tried to divert her as well, and I think James sometimes succeeded in telling her to sit, because she's also biting your calves and ankles. It was really painful. What's the right? Yeah.
So it's a big problem, particularly we see it as a big problem with puppy farmed puppies that have been taken away from their mum too early.
Yes, she had been taken away. She had been taken away.
They learn bite inhibition from other dogs. Now we can teach it, but it's quite difficult. And it kind of, you know, if they're biting too hard on us, we just need to stop the game. They want to interact with you, so you remove yourself. So if you're down on the floor with them, you just need to, you know, sit up on the couch, fold your arms and ignore them. Okay, don't interact. And you know, some people will say when they bite too hard, you need to shriek and make a noise like another dog would do, and startle them. But really, interacting with other dogs is the best way to learn bite inhibition. It's normal behaviour. it's just mouthing behaviour. They have to learn that as part of play, to know how much pressure is play and how much is predatory. If they're chasing something they're trying to kill, so it's normal behaviour, and they do have to learn it. And it's much better if they learn it interacting with other dogs. It'll be much more effective, because they will get told off. If they bite too hard, they'll get batted about the head, they'll get growled at, barked at, and it's much more effective than you and I miscommunicating with them.
Yeah, we noticed that. Yes, we couldn't communicate. Yeah. Anyway.
Good question. Does anyone else get any other questions? Brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you ever so much. I will let you know when we get the face-to-face puppy classes organised, and if there's any particular topics you would like any more webinars on, then do let me know, and we'll see what we can do. All right. Thank you ever so much, everybody.
Thanks, Claire.
Question.
Thank you, Claire.
Yeah.
This is just for me. It's just, do you know, now tonight, could like my sister has a puppy, and I wasn't aware if I could have shared this or not. Like, what's the story? Do you want us to share it on to people if we know they've got?
I've recorded it. So if you get them to make contact with me, I'll send them the link so they can watch it.
Perfect. I can do that. That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much for your time.
No problem. No problem. Thank you.
Very much, Claire. Very nice.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Claire. Bye.
Bye-bye.